I still remember the day we bought that house. 3 bedrooms, a sunroom that caught the morning light, and a garden my wife Sarah spent every weekend tending to. It was supposed to be our forever home, where we'd grow old together and create memories that would last lifetimes. But things rarely work out the way you plan them. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I met Sarah at a coffee shop downtown 15 years ago. She was struggling with an unwieldy stack of legal briefs when I offered to help. One coffee turned into dinner, dinner turned into weekends spent hiking through nearby forests. And within a year we were married. She was brilliant, a rising star at her law firm with ambition that matched her talent. I was building my own architecture business, designing custom homes for clients who valued sustainability and craftsmanship. Together, we were unstoppable. For our 5th anniversary, we decided it was time to stop renting and buy our dream home. After months of searching, we found it. A stunning craftsman on Maple Street with original woodwork and a yard big enough for the family we planned to start. We signed the papers on a crisp autumn day, popped champagne on the empty living room floor, and made plans for every inch of that space. For 7 years, that house was our sanctuary. Through career changes, failed pregnancy attempts, and my mother's long battle with cancer, those walls held us together. I designed a home office for Sarah when she made partner, and she surprised me with a workshop in the garage when I landed a major contract. We were a team. But about 3 years ago, things began to change. Sarah started working later, taking more business trips, and becoming distant. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Her firm was handling a high-profile case, and the pressure was immense. I tried to be supportive, handling more household duties and making sure she had space to decompress when she was home. "You seem stressed," I said one night as she scrolled through emails instead of eating the dinner I'd prepared. "Is there anything I can do?" She barely looked up. "I'm fine, just busy. This case is important." "You've been just busy for months now," I said carefully. "I feel like we're ships passing in the night." She finally put her phone down and sighed. "I know, and I'm sorry, it's just temporary. Once this case wraps up, things will go back to normal." But they didn't. If anything, the distance between us grew. She started keeping her phone face down and taking calls in another room. When I'd walk in, she'd quickly end the conversation. The woman who once shared everything with me had become a stranger. I tried suggesting counseling, weekend getaways, even a vow renewal ceremony, anything to reconnect. But Sarah always had an excuse. She was too busy. It wasn't the right time. Maybe next month. Eventually, I stopped asking. Then came the business trip to Chicago that changed everything. Sarah was supposed to be gone for 3 days. On the second night, lonely and missing her despite our problems, I decided to surprise her with a phone call. When she didn't answer, I called the hotel thinking maybe she was in a late meeting. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have a Sarah Mitchell registered with us," the receptionist said. My stomach dropped. There must be a mistake. She's there for the Bradshaw case. Could she be under her firm's name? After checking, the receptionist confirmed there was no Sarah Mitchell or anyone from her law firm staying at the hotel. I sat in our kitchen, staring at her itinerary on the fridge. Chicago Marriott, room 714. I'd even helped her pack for the trip. Where was my wife if not in Chicago? I spent that night debating what to do. Confront her? Hire a private investigator? Pretend I never made that call? By morning, I decided to wait and observe. When she returned from Chicago, I acted normal, asking about her trip and the case. She told me about meetings that never happened and dinners with colleagues who weren't there. Each lie felt like a knife twisting in my chest. The next week, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her credit card statements. There were charges from a local restaurant on the night she was supposedly in Chicago. And then I found something else. Recurring charges from a storage facility across town. On a Tuesday, when Sarah was genuinely at her office, I called to verify. I drove to the storage facility. Using her birth date as the access code, a guess, that painfully worked. I found a unit under her name. Inside was a collection of items I'd never seen before. Designer clothes still with tags, framed photos of Sarah with a man I didn't recognize, and a folder of documents. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements for an account I knew nothing about, with deposits totaling close to $300,000. There were also printouts of real estate listings and, most devastatingly, papers for a life insurance policy on me that she'd taken out 6 months earlier. I photographed everything and left the unit exactly as I'd found it. Driving home, I could barely see through my tears. The woman I'd built a life with was living a double life, and possibly planning something even more sinister. For the next few weeks, I lived in a state of numb surveillance. I installed cameras in our home, recorded our conversations, and documented her comings and goings. I learned she was having an affair with Richard Davenport, a senior partner at her firm, a married man 20 years her senior, with a reputation for discarding younger women once he tired of them. I hired a private investigator who confirmed my worst fears. Sarah and Richard had been involved for over 2 years. They met in hotel rooms at his lake house and sometimes even at our home when I was away on business. The betrayal was complete and devastating. But the insurance policy worried me most. Why would Sarah, who already had access to our joint accounts and property, need a separate policy on my life unless she was planning something unthinkable? I consulted an attorney, quietly moved my most important possessions to a secure location, and began preparing for divorce. But before I could file the papers, Sarah came home one evening with an unexpected announcement. "I think we should sell the house," she said casually, as if suggesting we try a new restaurant. "The market's hot right now and we could make a significant profit." I nearly choked on my dinner. Sell our home? Why would we do that? She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "We've been growing apart, David. You must feel it too. Maybe a fresh start in a new place would help us reconnect." The audacity of her suggestion left me speechless. She wanted to sell our home, possibly to fund her new life with Richard, while maintaining the pretense that it was for our benefit. "I don't want to sell," I said firmly. "This is our home. If we're having problems, we should work on them, not run from them." Sarah's expression hardened. "I've already spoken with a real estate agent. They're coming to assess the property tomorrow." "You did what?" I stood up, knocking my chair backward. "How could you make that decision without me?" "It's just an assessment," she said coldly. "No commitments. But it's happening, David. One way or another." That night, as Sarah slept, I went through her emails and found her conversations with the real estate agent. She hadn't just arranged an assessment, she'd already accepted an offer on our house. And when I saw the buyer's name, my blood ran cold. Lisa Davenport, Richard's wife. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Richard was planning to divorce Lisa, and Sarah had somehow convinced her to buy our house. But why would Lisa agree to this? Unless she didn't know who Sarah really was. The next morning, I called in sick to work and followed Sarah to her office. Instead of going inside, she met Richard in the parking garage. They argued intensely for several minutes before he handed her an envelope and drove away. Sarah then made a call, her expression triumphant as she spoke. When she left for a lunch meeting, I broke my own moral code and accessed her email from her home computer where she'd left herself logged in. There it was. A series of emails between Sarah and Lisa Davenport, where Sarah posed as a sympathetic friend, claiming to be another woman Richard had manipulated. She'd convinced Lisa that buying our house at a steep discount would be the perfect revenge against her cheating husband. Lisa believed she was purchasing the house from a fellow victim, unaware she was actually negotiating with Richard's current mistress. And the price they'd agreed upon? $1. Sarah planned to sell our $850,000 home to Lisa for a single dollar, then file for divorce and leave me with nothing while she started over with Richard and the money she'd been squirreling away. I sat back in my chair, stunned by the elaborate betrayal, but as my shock subsided, a strange calm washed over me. Because Sarah didn't know what I'd discovered in that storage unit. She didn't know about the cameras I'd installed or the evidence I'd gathered. And most importantly, she had no idea about the secret I'd been keeping for months. A secret that was about to turn her perfect plan upside down. Upside down. You see, 2 months ago I received a letter from Richard Davenport's previous mistress, and what she revealed about Richard and his pattern with young, ambitious attorneys would not only save me from financial ruin, but would give Sarah a taste of her own medicine. As I heard Sarah's key in the lock, I quickly cleared her browsing history and prepared to play the role of unsuspecting husband one last time. The end game was approaching, and I finally held all the cards. Sarah thought she was 3 steps ahead, but she had no idea I was playing an entirely different game. "Honey, I'm home," she called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Did the real estate agent call you? They're very excited about our listing." I smiled, hiding the storm brewing inside me. "No, they didn't call, but I'm excited to hear all about it." Sarah's plan was coming together perfectly, or so she thought. But tomorrow would bring revelations that would shatter her carefully constructed house of cards, and I couldn't wait to see her face when she realized exactly what I knew and what was coming her way. The sound of Sarah's heels clicking against our hardwood floors used to make my heart race with anticipation. Now each step feels like the ticking of a time bomb about to destroy everything we built. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I woke up early the next morning, my mind racing with everything I'd discovered. Sarah was still asleep, her face peaceful, as if she wasn't plotting to dismantle our life together. I slipped out of bed and headed to my home office, locking the door behind me. The letter from Richard's previous mistress lay hidden in a false bottom I'd built into my desk drawer, an old habit from growing up with nosy siblings that was now proving useful in my marriage. Josephine Hart had reached out to me after seeing Sarah and Richard together at a restaurant downtown. Unlike Sarah, who had been successfully hidden from Richard's wife, Josephine hadn't been so lucky. "Your wife is making the same mistake I did," her letter read. "Richard doesn't leave his wife. He promises, manipulates, then discards. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part, according to Josephine, was that Richard had a pattern of using his mistresses in an elaborate financial scheme. He would identify ambitious women at the firm, seduce them, then use them to hide assets during what he presented as his upcoming divorce. The money Sarah had been collecting wasn't for their future together. It was Richard's way of hiding. Funds from Lisa before he cut Sarah loose. But there was more. Josephine had kept records, dates, transactions, recorded conversations, all proving that Richard had embezzled money from several high-profile clients, using his mistress's accounts to launder the funds. Sarah wasn't just being manipulated. Emotionally, she was unwittingly participating in financial fraud. I heard Sarah's alarm go off in our bedroom. Quickly, I returned the letter to its hiding place and unlocked my office door. By the time she appeared in the kitchen, I was casually making coffee. "Big day today," I said, sliding a mug toward her. "Meeting with the real estate agent, right?" Sarah nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Yes, just finalizing some details. You know, I've been thinking about this whole house sale," I said carefully. "I'd like to be more involved in the process." Her head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "Well, it's our house. I should at least meet the buyer, don't you think?" The color drained from Sarah's face. "That's not necessary. The agent handles all that. Actually, I took the liberty of calling them yesterday." I lied smoothly. "They mentioned the buyer is coming by this afternoon. Lisa Davenport, right? Interesting coincidence. Same last name as your boss." Sarah's coffee mug hit the counter with a thud, dark liquid sloshing over the rim. "You had no right to do that." "No. Right? I'm still on the deed, Sarah." I maintained a calm I didn't feel. "In fact, I've invited Lisa for coffee before the official walkthrough. I thought it would be nice to tell her about all the special features of our home, like how the master bedroom gets perfect morning light, or how the shower in our ensuite sometimes runs cold if the dishwasher is running." Sarah's eyes widened. "You can't do that." "Already done. She's coming at 3. I glanced at my watch. "Don't you have a meeting with Richard this morning? You'd better hurry." The look of panic on her face was almost worth the months of pain. Almost. "This isn't what..." You think, she stammered, grabbing her purse. Isn't it? We can discuss that tonight. I'm sure Lisa will have left by then. After Sarah practically ran out the door, I called Lisa Davenport directly, using the number I'd found in Sarah's emails. Mrs. Davenport, this is David Mitchell. I believe you're purchasing my home. There was a pause on the other end. Yes, though I've primarily been dealing with Sarah. She's been so helpful during this difficult time. I can imagine, I said. Listen, I was hoping we could meet today, before the official walkthrough. There are some things about the house and about your situation that I think you should know. To my relief, she agreed. Lisa Davenport arrived precisely at 3, a striking woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to wealth. As we sat in the living room Sarah planned to sell for $1, I carefully laid out what I knew. Mrs. Davenport, I'm afraid you've been misled, not just by your husband, but by my wife as well. Her expression remained composed, but her knuckles whitened around her teacup. Go on. I showed her the photos from the storage unit, the bank statements, and finally, Josephine's letter and evidence. My wife isn't another victim of your husband's manipulation, I explained. She's his current mistress. This house sale, this $1 transaction is part of their plan, though I suspect only my wife believes they have a future together. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Lisa set down her cup with deliberate care. I've suspected Richard was having another affair, but Sarah seemed so genuine in her desire to help me get back at him. The irony is, I don't think Sarah realizes she's being used too. Your husband has done this before. He never leaves, just uses these women to hide assets during what he calls rough patches in your marriage. Lisa's laugh was bitter. Rough patches. That's one way to describe 30 years of infidelity. She straightened her shoulders. Mr. Mitchell, I appreciate your honesty. What happens now? That depends on what you want. Personally, I have no desire to remain in this house with these memories, but I refuse to let Sarah sell it for $1 to fulfill some twisted revenge fantasy. Lisa studied me for a long moment. What if we proceed with the sale, but at fair market value? I've been looking for a property like this for my art studio, and it would indeed irritate Richard knowing I've done something completely independent of him. I could agree to that. I nodded slowly. But there's one more thing you should know. I showed her the evidence Josephine had provided about Richard's financial schemes, including documents suggesting he'd embezzled client funds. This isn't just about affairs, I explained. Your husband has been using these relationships to commit fraud. My wife's secret account? It's full of money that belongs to his clients. Lisa's composure finally cracked. That fool, she whispered. After everything I've overlooked, he risks everything for this? We spent the next hour developing a plan that would protect both our interests. By the time Sarah's key turned in the lock at 6, Lisa and I had reached an understanding. Sarah froze in the doorway, her eyes darting between us. Hello, Sarah, Lisa said pleasantly. Your husband has been giving me a very thorough tour. David? Sarah's voice wavered. I thought you had a meeting this afternoon. I rescheduled, I replied. Mrs. Davenport and I had a lot to discuss. Such as? The fear in her eyes was unmistakable, such as the actual value of this property for one thing. Lisa interjected. I've decided $1 is insultingly low. I've offered your husband fair market value instead. Sarah's purse slipped from her fingers. I don't understand. I think you do, I said quietly. Lisa knows everything, Sarah. About you and Richard. About the storage unit. About the money. The money that apparently belongs to my husband's clients, Lisa added. A detail I'm particularly interested in. Sarah's face crumpled. He promised we would be together.
He said once his divorce was finalized. Richard isn't divorcing me, Lisa cut in sharply. He never was. You're not the first woman he's fed that line to, and the money in your account? It's not for your future together. It's his safety net.
with your name conveniently attached to any potential legal issues. I watched as the realization washed over Sarah's face. All her careful planning, her betrayal, it had all been built on Richard's lies. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now," I said, standing up. "You have a choice. Option 1. Lisa and I go to the police and the Bar Association with everything we know. You and Richard face charges for fraud and embezzlement." Sarah paled. "And Option 2? You transfer every cent from that secret account back to where it belongs. You sign the divorce papers I've already had drawn up, which include a fair division of our assets, and you leave this house and my life today." "I'd suggest Option 2, Lisa said, her voice steel. "Because I plan to have a very interesting conversation with my husband tonight regardless." Sarah looked between us, the architects of her downfall. "I never meant to hurt you," she said weakly. "Save it," I replied. "Your things are already packed. I took the liberty this afternoon." As Sarah disappeared upstairs to collect her suitcase, Lisa turned to me. "You're being more generous than I would be." "It's not generosity," I said quietly. "It's freedom. I just want this chapter of my life closed." When Sarah dragged her suitcase down the stairs 10 minutes later, her eyes were red but dry. At the door, she paused. "For what it's worth, I did love you once." "It's worth nothing," I replied. "Goodbye, Sarah." After she left, Lisa and I finalized our agreement. She would buy the house at a fair price. I would provide her with copies of all evidence against Richard, and we would both move forward with our lives. That night, as I sat alone in the empty living room where Sarah and I had once popped champagne and dreamed of our future, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Lisa. Richard came home to divorce papers and a visit from his firm's ethics committee. He knows we've talked. Be careful." I looked around at the home that had witnessed both the best and worst moments of my marriage. Tomorrow, I would sign the papers transferring it to Lisa. Tomorrow I would begin rebuilding my life. But tonight, in the quiet aftermath of destruction, I allowed myself to grieve for what had been lost, and to feel the first glimmer of hope for what might still be possible in a life no longer shadowed by lies,